Montreal needs the autonomy to be able to make its own decisions like the rest of Quebec.
Right.
This is not a huge ask. We're already doing it everywhere else. Why they've decided that Montreal is this hotbed for crime and whatever is beyond me.
Hey, I'm Jason Rockman, and I'm on the corner of Saint-Denis and Ontario in the Quartier Latin. We're going to be going to talk to Turbo Haüs owner Sergio Da Silva, who owns a live music venue in an area that has been zoned for live music for years. Let's find out what some of the problems and some of the solutions are today on Les Montréalistes. Sergio Da Silva, owner of Turbo Haüs.
Yeah.
Known you for a long time.
I've been for almost a decade.
Yeah, it's been a while. It's been more than a decade, actually. I don't want to make you feel old. You have dealt with issues that are very common, unfortunately, for people that own live music venues, any kind of nightclub in Montreal. Tell people a bit about those issues that you've dealt with.
I mean, it's been years now that like I've been dealing with like different things like noise complaints, problems with our neighbors. It sort of like runs the gamut, and everybody that you speak to who's in this milieu, who runs a nightclub, who runs a venue, who owns any sort of like aspect of nightlife, even like bars and restaurants, has the same story. Will be able to tell you about some angry neighbor or what it is. And like I've been dealing with that for almost 20 years.
So you started off as a musician. Mm-hmm. You ended up opening up the first incarnation of Turbo Haüs, which was more of like a speakeasy. It was more like a private club. And then you went into it full speed ahead, opened up an actual bar anyone could come to. And the area you were in was super, super residential.
Yeah, we were the problem. Like when we moved from 1180 Saint Antoine to the spot in Saint Henry, like it became almost immediately noticeable that we were the issue in the neighborhood. We were causing the change in the neighborhood.
Right.
So we decided after a couple of years and after a few complaints that we needed to move. So we came here, which is in the heart of the Quartier Spectacle, so that we could have the spectacle,
right,
and not have to run into any of those issues anymore.
And I think that's big of you to be able to say, okay, we tried this once, we had a good space, but we were really in a place where we were a problem. We readjusted, we moved somewhere where we're definitely in a place where we're surrounded by other live venues, other nightclubs, other bars. This is known for years. I mean, I used to come drink here when I was drinking, and I haven't drank in 33 years. So, I mean, this place has been the area, these few blocks have been the area to go out in Montreal for years. So you moving here is, you're doing your research, you're saying, okay, we're going to be in an area where we're not going to have any issues. And then you still have issues.
And then you still have issues. So like it becomes strange to be, again, like I said, in the Quartier Spectacle and then have people complain about the spectacle.
Right.
And specifically on Saint-Denis, between Sherbrooke and de Maisonneuve, it's zoned so that every single storefront can be a bar. So this is where the city wants this to happen.
Right.
So for us, it became very strange to run into any of these issues if this is where the city is telling us to go. But since then, we had one real bad complaint, but since then we haven't really had anything. But we've put a lot of effort into avoiding any of these issues. Like if you look at the space right now, the bottom floor is the bar and the venue. The floors directly above it, I probably shouldn't be saying on this podcast, but one is where I live and one is where we host bands. So that gives a buffer between everybody else in the residential units above.
Right, yeah. So you have that space. So basically the top floor residential, they've got something between them that should cut that noise down.
And that costs us an extra $4,000 a month. And we don't charge for the bands to be there.
Yeah.
So like that is a cost that we've incurred to make sure that we're a decent part of the community here.
Well, yeah, and that's another thing. Like people don't know, like being someone who's been, was in a touring band for years. When you would tour across Canada, especially, a lot of venues had band houses, and it was something that, and you probably knew this from touring yourself. Like it was something that was extended. It was a courtesy that was extended to bands, and it was really appreciated when you were on the road. So for you to offer that in a city is very rare. I mean, I can understand that in like a secondary or a tertiary market, but in a major market like Montreal, to have a band house above a venue is unheard of. So the fact that you're doing that, you're offering so much. And I think that, people not seeing that, it was always something that irked me. When I would see you talk about the problems that you were having, and I don't know, I said, this guy's doing everything right. Why is he getting picked on?
Because I got a big stupid mouth. Yeah. If you don't shut up, people are going to, there's going to be a target on your back.
Sure.
But I'm in a situation right now where we don't really have these problems anymore because of the work that we've done to avoid them.
Yeah.
But doesn't mean that other people aren't having these problems.
You're ended up, what I think it's nice about you is you're taking it upon yourself to be a voice for people that are dealing with those issues. And because you do have a platform, you're able to say, hey, you know what? I've dealt with this. I've got a way to deal with this, which we're going to talk about, which I think is brilliant. But let me help other people that are dealing with this by giving them maybe some advice, who they should talk to. And I know from talking to other people that have been in these situations that have said, yeah, I spoke to Sergio and he really helped me a lot. He gave me some advice on what I should do to deal with this. But you need to have people that are outspoken, especially when you're someone that's offering so much to the community. Because you really are. I mean, you're offering a venue where, you know, young bands can come, they can cut their chops, bands that want to come back here, that enjoy the venue, that want to maybe do multiple nights. Like we were talking about how this venue is not just a bar that's a stepping stone, but it's a bar that people really like to come back to. And it's open to any kind of style of music.
Oh, for sure.
And that's great.
I mean, I see venues as more community spaces than bars.
Yes.
Like so where bands get to meet each other, where musicians get to meet each other, and everybody can sort of like come together to make the community bigger and better and stronger. Like I feel like a space like this is very much a third space.
Yeah.
You know, and we don't, obviously we lack those. People don't go to church anymore. People don't go to like community centers anymore. So this I see as fulfilling that role in what people need in their daily lives. So yeah, but ultimately, again, I'm in a good space and I'm capable of running my mouth because I know that I'm secure in what I'm doing. But there's a lot of spots and there are a lot of places who are going to have to deal with this for years to come because the neighborhoods are rapidly changing.
Right.
So what once was a historically nightlife district, you would never, ever think to have these complaints. Condos are going up. People are moving in that may not, you know, fit the ecosystem of where they're moving into. And for a myriad of reasons. Maybe they were lied to about where they were moving. Maybe they didn't do their research. Maybe they moved in during COVID and it was quiet during COVID. Yeah. And then that changes and it goes back to what it's supposed to be.
What I think, when I think of travesties in terms of how, the city has handled closing down a live venue, La Tulipe always comes to mind. And I know that was one that you were very outspoken about. A lot of us were. It was absolute horseshit.
Yeah.
Can you tell people that are listening to this what happened and how that all came about? Because that was really, it was almost like a sleight of hand.
Yeah. I mean, the La Tulipe situation is a perfect microcosm of everybody who's in nightlife is talking about and is worried about. Mm-hmm. So there are rules on the books that would have protected in the first place. You are not allowed in that area to change a commercial unit into a residential unit.
Right.
This man was able to do that. Through whatever means he was able to do it. And then the city wouldn't reverse it. So then he was in this residential unit that's supposed to be commercial. And then he starts calling noise complaints on a 100-year-old venue. And not only that, it's one of the only 500 cap rooms that we have in the city. So so everybody there loses their jobs. Promoters have one less place to book. There's bands with one less place to play. Every business around there is affected by it. Like it's a satellite spot. If you have a room that's 500 people that gets sold out, everybody there is going to benefit from it.
100%.
And now we all, we lose our jobs. We lose a commercial hub, we lose a cultural hub because one person who doesn't even live there has decided for whatever reason he wants to take over this space, which he can't even because it's a historically protected spot. So now we're just have to wait for it to become derelict and the city tears it down.
Right.
So for what? Like none of it makes any sense. So one person can have a bit more. And if you think about it, I mean, you've toured, and if you look at Eastern Canada, you can't skip Montreal.
No.
And if there's no places to play, then you're not even going to come this way. It's the doorway to the east coast of the country.
Right.
So when you're talking about planning a tour or doing whatever, and you cannot get into this market because there's just nowhere to play, then that the rest of the country suffers. Like Montreal is a cultural hub, not only for the country, but for the continent. And you got to think about that. You're like, people are like, oh, why are they always playing Toronto? Because there's nowhere to fucking play in Montreal, you idiots. You're letting this happen. Yeah. This is your fucking city. Either you step up and do something about it or shut the fuck up when, God knows who has decided that they're not going to come to Montreal anymore.
It has been a problem that's been happening for years. And that's why a bar like yours is important, because if you are a band that's coming through and, you can't do, a 1,500 or more, you need to have a venue to play like that. And, when I was coming up in the early 90s, there were so many of them. There was Station 10, there was Terminal, there was Soundgarden, there was Purple Haze, there was Jailhouse Rock. There was a ton. And, there still are bars, but you just feel like they all have targets on their backs now. And it's from the greed of people that want to develop areas that are that should be there for culture.
Absolutely. And there's a lot to be said from like both different sides. Like what I'd like mostly out of these conversations is to realize that we do have to have these conversations. I'd like there to be a situation where you're not going to see the police. You're not going to see your city councilor. You're speaking to me before you speak to anybody.
Well, that's a big point. And I love the way you've handled it. We were talking before about how when you have an issue, you'd rather go to your neighbor and say, hey, I heard you have an issue with, noise in your building. Let's talk about it. What can we do to make it better? I mean, obviously we're a live venue. We've done everything we can. We're zoned to be here. We're perfectly legal in our rights to be here, but you're still a little uncomfortable. What can we do? And I think if more people do that, instead of just ratting somebody out by calling the cops or by calling, like I mentioned, calling a city councilor or a mayor and making a formal complaint, why don't you go and try to talk to the owner and say, hey, is there anything we can do? And I'm sure if people would do that more, you would be surprised how you could come to, if you're speaking to the right person, you could come to somewhat of an amicable agreement.
For the most part, you could immediately solve these problems that night there and then. You can, what we did for a very long time, because there was somebody living here who was uncomfortable with the noise, they couldn't sleep. And they were trying to, they had to go to work in the morning. Yeah. We said, cool, what we're going to do, even on Friday and Saturday, live music, it's done at 11 o'clock.
I remember that. And I remember when you did that.
And we were hard on it. Yeah. Like, we're going to be done by 11. We want to be a good civic, we're part of this ecosystem. We're part of where you live. You deserve a certain quality of life. And we're going to do our best to make sure that you can do that. But, on the flip side, leave us the fuck alone.
Yeah.
I'm doing my part. You do your part. And your part is only shutting the fuck up.
Yeah. So, and did it work?
Of course it worked. She eventually left.
Yeah.
But, once her lease was up and other people, like the landlords, we had to speak to them. Be like, hey, you have to know that we're down here. You have to tell people that we're down here so that we can actually speak to these people. And he made those adjustments. And now we're in a situation where it's been since the pandemic, we haven't had a noise complaint. Yeah. The people who live here come down. They see me. They know me by my first name. They have my telephone number. I can have these conversations with them before any of this really hits the fan. But again, not everybody is in that perfect situation. Right. If you look at a place like the Ritz, where they've built like huge condos, there's no way the people who own the Ritz can speak to every single person there. Like, it's impossible.
No.
But, if we can somehow, now that the books are open, if we can somehow find a way to make sure that anyone who's making a complaint has to speak to the person first before they go to the police. The same way you would do if you have a fraudulent charge on your Visa card, right? You're not allowed to just call Visa and be like, this is a problem. Visa will tell you, hey, you got to speak to the merchant first. And if you can't amicably come up with a way to figure this out, then you come see us. It's got to be something like that. There's also, I don't know if many people who are listening to this know that, like, Montreal has an arm of the Régie d'Alcool. They have their arm of the police service called Morality. Morality only exists in Montreal.
Okay.
In the rest of Quebec, it does not exist. And basically, they're here to fuck your shit up. Like, that's all they're here for.
Give me some examples.
They're the ones who are going to tell you, hey, you're too loud. We're taking your alcohol permit away. Hey, you don't have a permis spectacle for this particular little thing. We're shutting this down. And it creates this situation where the SPVM has a job and Morality has a job, but their standards are completely different. Right. So if the city of Montreal decides that they want to make things better in terms of nightlife, they can put in whatever positive laws that they want. Morality answers only to the province and the Régie d'Alcool. So they don't care what the city says because they're a higher power and, like, we don't care that this is the new rule. We're going to shut you down. And it only exists in the city of Montreal. You go to fucking Gatineau, there's no Morality. You go to fucking Chibougamau, there's no fucking Morality. It's only in the city of Montreal. And the first thing we have to do is get rid of them. Like, right. You have to, in every aspect, for any of this to work, Montreal needs the autonomy to be able to make its own decisions like the rest of Quebec.
Right.
This is not a huge ask. We're already doing it everywhere else. Why they've decided that Montreal is this hotbed for crime and whatever is beyond me. Hell's Angels exist everywhere. Hell's Angels like exist in, the Canton d'Est and everywhere else. Right. Like, they're not just here. So, and they're able to deal with that there. We can deal with that here.
Yeah.
SPVM, do your fucking job.
It's pretty ironic too when you think that there's two people that are, technically looking to complain about the same things, but one outranks the other when the other one should be outranking the other.
That's it.
By far.
It should be.
And they're a unique thing to the. So did you ever look into the history of morality and how that started?
Specifically, no. But
Okay.
actually, no. I was having a long conversation with Tasha, who is one of the smartest and most capable people I've ever met, who runs the SDC for the city of Montreal and for the plateau, for Saint Laurent specifically.
Okay.
She's an absolute whip. Like, I cannot. Every time I speak to her, I learn something new.
Right.
So the morality police came into being in Montreal because of Al fucking Capone.
Okay.
Can we fucking get real for 1 second?
Yeah, that's a little bit. Right? That's a ways away.
That's a ways away. We're not dealing with Al Capone anymore.
Yeah.
All right. We're dealing with like kids who want to have a show in a basement, or people who want to have like, we've done everything to sterilize Montreal.
Yeah.
And so we've got there, guys. Like, you've done what you wanted. It's a neutered version of what it was 15, 20, 25 years ago.
So here's an example. My daughter is starting to go to band, so go to see band. She's of age now. She goes to bars, but there's that space underneath the bridge in Van Horn. She goes to that. I'm like, and I'm saying to myself, how is this allowed to exist outside? How are they able to? So it's basically a generator party. That's what they were doing.
We've all been there. We've all done them, and they're going to pop up everywhere else. So, like, rest in peace to it's that Van Horn Viaduct. Right. But there's going to be other spots. There already
there
other
was
spots.
That one. That one closed down, and then
I'm not going
to say it either. But the thing is that there's always going to be kids that want to play music. There's always going to be people that want to get together, and especially, I think there's a huge issue, not only just for kids that are 18 and over, but what about kids that are younger, like all ages shows? It's having venues where, like, does that even, like, where do those exist?
There are a couple. Soterrania is one of them. That they're run by the same people who run Casa and Sala Rosa.
Okay.
And there are spaces here and there, but again, absolutely, like having all ages shows is important. Like getting in new energy, getting people interested in this in a safe space.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not, I don't think there should be 15-year-olds in a bar with fucking, 34-year-olds.
No, 100%.
I think that's weird.
No, but I mean,
like community center shows at the Legion, stuff like that. Those are very important to happen, and like those have to happen. But ultimately, at the end of the day, like, it's sort of like a citywide issue. Like, we all sort of like in the same boat. We all want the city to prosper, and nightlife is a huge part of that. Yeah. And you can't deny it. Like, neighborhoods spring up around cultural hubs. Yeah. You think of like Studio 54 and all this stuff, like neighborhoods sprung up around that. You look at, even in the Southwest around Joe Beef. Yeah. Joe Beef goes there. Guess what? Everything else
goes up. I know, because I want to be. Listen, when I was a kid and you'd go on Notre Dame, the only reason I went there in the early '90s was to go to the uniform store. Yeah. To buy a gas station jacket so I could look like Mike Patton. So, like, there was no reason to go in that area, and then all of a sudden that area turns up. And can you imagine if you were to say to somebody in that area, like, we're going to want to shut this all down? People would be like, what are you talking about? This has been incredible for the neighborhood. And it extended west, and it just kept going, like, up until, where you were at the end there. But still, we need these things. These are what makes a neighborhood a neighborhood. Being someone who lives, like, I live in the Southwest, we have a lot of issues on Monk, Monk Street, because we just can't keep things, storefronts there. I can't imagine what would happen if, a live venue turned up there. And we do have, there is Théâtre Paradox, in the old church there. But we need live venues, and we need and for us not to have a live venue because someone's complaining, it just doesn't make sense. And there has to be some kind of a happy medium.
Absolutely. And that brings up another point where people are like, hey, we only want venues and bars and nightlife in these specific areas. Yeah. That's not how a city works.
No, I agree.
The reason you want to live there is because I want to be close to my local. I want to be close to my to a venue. I want to be close to some of the best restaurants that we have in the city. You want that to be spread everywhere. You want people to enjoy these things.
And think what makes a great little area. We talk about that area, that stretch on Notre Dame. You've got Théâtre Beanfield, Corona. Then you've got you got Burgundy Line, you've got Joe Beef, you've got Liverpool House, you got all those things that are in that area. But you do have a live venue there.
That's it. It's an anchor to all this stuff.
Yes.
So you're going to the show. We're too early for the show. I'm going to go to a STEM bar. I'm going to grab a drink. I'm going to grab some oysters. Going to be on my way. Right. Or I'm going to go to the drinkery or whatever. Or I'll even go to I'll go to Green Spot up the street, grab a couple of hot dogs and a hamburger, and be on my way back. Like, these are anchors. These create community. These create people coming to see the neighborhood and see different things. Like just even going to a show and be like, oh, I know the uniform store is there. I'm going to get a button up because I'm already.
But it all starts with a live venue, because that's what brings people there. And that's what brings people, maybe people are after the show are walking around the neighborhood and, maybe some of these places aren't open, but they're going, oh, I never knew there was a bakery here. When I come back, I'm going to come a little early. I'm going to go there on the weekend. I'm going to go back. Like, this is a place where it brings different people from other neighborhoods to come in and experience your neighborhood. So, targeting live music venues, I think, is ridiculous.
Yeah, it's targeting live music venues. It's targeting nightclubs. It's targeting all aspects of nightlife. And when you think about it, you have to include everything. That includes, nightclubs. That includes strip clubs. That includes bars, venues, restaurants. All of that make up the tapestry of what makes Montreal unique, what makes Montreal special, what makes Montreal a place that people want to come to. And right now, we're almost in a perfect situation where people are hesitant to go down south. People are hesitant to go to New York. People are hesitant to go to Vegas. And you're looking at it, okay, what is Montreal if not the Las Vegas, or at least was Las Vegas of, the North, where people can go out, hang out, have a little fun, let off some steam. That stupid shirt you see in the old port all the time. Good girls go to heaven, bad girls go to Montreal. Like that's,
yeah, right. Tap. Nice.
But that's it. Sort of like you need, and when that goes away, you don't get it back. You look at Toronto, you look at Vancouver.
No, if
you let that go, you are never getting it back. And it all comes down to, again, this is all like a bigger situation with the cost of living. 20, 25 years ago, my rent was $400. And not just me. That's me and the guys that I live with. The rent was $400. I was able to be in a band doing DIY tours, 50, 60-day tours, and coming home, and I still had fucking money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That doesn't exist anymore.
No, it doesn't.
Like the indie boom of the early aughts doesn't exist without the affordable living situation that Montreal had.
It's I was talking to one of the people on our team about this situation where we were talking about apartment buildings and maybe apartments over venues, and this is a very interesting thing because of how expensive rents are. If you moved into, let's say you moved into an apartment over a bar when you were in your 20s and you've been there for 15 years, now you have a partner, now you have a kid, now you're older, now you want a bit of quiet, and all of a sudden that bar downstairs becomes a problem and you start to complain, but you can't go anywhere because for you to move somewhere different, you're not going to have the same kind of space you would have now for the same kind of rent. So that becomes an issue too. So, people change, they get older, they have different needs. A lot of times, if you are in a hub like this and you're like, I want a quieter life, I want to bring up kids, I'm going to go a little further. That option isn't always there for you.
No,
so there is a lot of issues when it comes to affordable housing, when it comes to, rent hikes. It's all part of a big melting pot of like communication.
That's it.
And I love the approach that you said, I'm going to go to my neighbor who maybe has an issue and go, I'm going to find a way to make this better for you.
That's it. And like, that's what we have to do. Because sometimes you do get into those situations. Another one that, with speaking with Tasha yesterday, one that she brought up, like where all the big shows happen for Jazz Fest, Just for Laughs, all this stuff, there is an assisted living home there.
Right.
And they were like, well, too bad. We're building these, we're building these stages. We're going to have these concerts outside and it's just going to be what it is. And, there are people who went to these meetings in the city and be like, I'm 80 years old. I'm in this assisted living facility. I can't sleep.
Yeah.
I can't do it. And you think this multi-million project, they would think like, hey, there's an assisted living home here. What can we do to make sure that they can have a certain quality of life, especially in their twilight years?
Yeah.
Maybe move it, maybe so that they can still access the resources they need. It's still easy to get to if their family needs to see them. All that kind of stuff needs to be taken into consideration. For that, my heart bleeds, and there has to be a way to figure this out so that everybody works.
Yeah.
But, on the other end of that spectrum, you have somebody moving into a $1.5 million fucking apartment next to where they're going to build these stages. You have the resources to fucking live somewhere else. Yeah. You're smart enough that you should be smart enough to be able to look at where you're moving to and then to be there and be like, well, why are the Black Eyed Peas here? It's like, dude, this is where you fucking moved. Like that's what's going to happen. Like, and these are very real stories of people who are moving to the old port and they're complaining about restaurants. You moved here for the fucking restaurants.
Yeah, come on.
Shut the fuck up.
Yeah. And the other thing too, you know, the noise complaint thing doesn't just, you know, happen to venues. All the stuff that happens on the island, you know, the 3 festivals, they've been dealing with St. Lambert for years.
That's
you know, and you're talking about something that brings in so much tourism to the city. It's preposterous that we're having to go, oh, well, you know, it's 3 weekends a year. Like this, like there's got to be a point where it's like, okay, I know you're upset, but like maybe go away that weekend, you know, maybe plan your vacation around that, or maybe just come to the festival.
That's the thing. That's the thing. That's the fucking nail on the head right there. Participate.
Yeah.
You know, you won't be bummed if you actually try to participate in the things that are going on.
Yeah.
Maybe if you went out and enjoyed them, maybe if you went out and enjoyed what the city has to offer, these would seem like less of a nuisance.
Yeah.
Because for a lot of people, noise, concerts, nightclubs, strip clubs, restaurants, bars, they're a nuisance.
Right.
They're not something that actually brings something good to the city. And for some people, you can never convince them.
Yeah.
And so like it has to, again, all of this has to come down to communication. But also, like, we're in a situation now that is extremely unique because the current administration seems like they want to open these books and they want to talk about what's been going on. We haven't talked about this realistically for 50 years.
Right.
And now they just did a public consultation. That's where they had asked this, they had proposed $10,000 fines. They proposed decibel limits and all this stuff. And they got hammered with close to 13,000 comments and like people just saying like, hey, this is what it is. Like, we can't be doing this. And that is, for me, huge.
Yeah.
That's a great thing. Because again, with morality, that has been there since Al Capone. That has basically affected what the city and the landscape has looked like for the past half a fucking century.
Yeah.
And if we don't do something now, it's going to be what it looks like for another half century.
Yeah.
And by that time, it could be too late. And then we're not going to be able to do any of the things that we want to do. And you look at some of these rules and it's basically you have one tool and it's the cops and it's a fucking hammer. Every single thing they see is a fucking nail. And all they want to do is hammer it. And for people like us, that's one situation. But you talk to people who are in nightclubs who are sort of like, when the people who are coming to your club are, you know, mainly minorities, and the city sees like, oh, they're going to be gangsters there. So now you have this new weapon to go into these spaces and just bludgeon them.
Yeah.
For what? Because you're scared of black teenagers? Dude, I don't know what to tell you. Like, this is what Montreal looks like. There's a whole vast array of what makes up nightlife in Montreal. And it's not just venues, and it's not just restaurants, and it's not just bars. It's literally everybody in the city has a stake in it.
Yeah.
And when you have such regimented rules with such hard fines and such harsh consequences, you can absolutely use that to abuse and treat people that you consider to be a nuisance because you have a weird sense of like what is right and wrong, and you can just come down hard. And then again, with that comes in the intimidation factor of people wanting to get involved in these spaces. If I look at it, like $10,000 from one person complaining from a first-time fucking offense, this is money that I've saved for my entire fucking life, and now you want me to get involved in this? Fuck no. Yeah. And that leaves only the people who have specific ideas, specific agendas, and specific things that they want for the city to look like. And none of these people with crazy ideas, with fun ideas, with new energy can get involved.
Yeah, and they're just going to want to stay away because it's too complicated.
Of course. And like, I can't imagine losing everything on one noise complaint. For a lot of these places like that are my size, a $10,000 fine
it's crippling.
Dude, it's over.
Yeah.
I'm not going to pay myself for 2 months. Are you fucked?
Yeah, no. Thanks for taking the time to chat, man.
Of course.
Appreciate it. So as you can see with our conversation with Sergio, the key to solving these issues is communication. We all need to talk a little bit more, and some of these things might actually get better. If you've got an issue that you'd like for us to investigate or maybe talk to someone about, let us know. Drop it in the comments, and we'll see you next time on Les Montréalistes.